It should be live any seconds. There we go. So hi everybody, welcome. My name is Mark Anderson, ICT Evangelist. I'm really excited to be with you here this morning. I know if some of you are in the US, it's quite late with you. I think it's around 1 a.m. So, kudos to you for staying up that late here in the UK. It's 9 a.m. So good morning. Hope you got yourself a nice cup of coffee and or tea if you're a tea drinker. And I hope you're having a great start to your day. And today's session is exploring how we can sort of use a variety of tools inside Office/Microsoft 365, depending on how you call it. I think the official title now is just Microsoft 365, but there are loads of ways in which you can use Office to help you with what it is that you do. And actually, as a teacher of computing, we talk about things like Office as being productivity tools. Yes, they ostensibly are tools for helping people work within an office environment, but we're educators, and we might get to see our offices, once or twice a week, but more often than not, we're actually in the classroom front-facing with students. But just because we're using Office tools doesn't mean to say that we can't make good use of them. And actually, say Microsoft 365, Office 365 is classed as a productivity suite of tools. And actually, the chances are you're already being very, very productive with your use of technology in the classroom anyway. I've got some slides and things that I want to run through with you during this session. So I'm just going to bring those up and bring that up for you now to view. And as I say, when if you've got any questions during my presentation, rather than just jumping on the mic and just interrupting, so normally that would be fine under sort of normal circumstances, but given we're recording and things, if you could just pop those questions into the meeting chat, and I'll respond to them as and when I can jump back into Teams to see all those different things. Okay, so hopefully this will bring up the correct presentation, which it hasn't, and I always have this problem, so please bear with me a second, because that's not going to be the right presentation for you to view. So that's going to come up, and I do like to make sure that at least one thing doesn't work quite correctly for me during a presentation, just so I can sort of prove that it's not just me that things go wrong for at times. Okay, so now hopefully you can now see as he jumps across to here. Yes, you can. Brilliant stuff. So here's my presentation here, and as I said, the topic for the session today is using Microsoft tools to reduce workload and speed up your working day. It was quite funny yesterday. I shared, and a few days before I was sharing about this session this morning taking place, and somebody replied. Jane Bassnett from a school here in the UK shared, I would really love to speed up my working day. Unfortunately, I can't actually make your day go quicker. And what I can do is share some tools, hints, tips, tricks, those sorts of things that can make the activities that we do as teachers happen a little bit quicker. And there are lots of ways in which we can do that. Some of it might be sort of self-evident and pretty obvious. It might be, for example, use of Microsoft Forms for assessment for learning activities, using that as a tool, or Polly within, which is a little polling tool directly within Teams. These are quick, efficient ways to get feedback from your learners, to garner responses to questions as part of your assessment for learning regimen. And these things can actually mark things for you as well, such as within Microsoft Forms. And you can even, do things really, really quickly and easily. And one of the things I'll be focusing on today is a little bit about using shortcuts to things as well, because there are long ways around doing things, and there are efficient and quick ways of doing things. And often it's a case of not knowing what the quick and efficient ways of doing it are. You're using older approaches to the things which still work inside the whole ecosystem. But the tool has developed massively over the last sort of 4 to 5 years, and so there are great opportunities for enhancements and improvements and sort of tweaks that you can make to your practice to speed up what it is that you do. And if you've got if you've got a question, I want to make this activity that I do more efficient, Mark. You didn't share anything about that. Do you have any hints or tips? Happy to jump into that conversation in the section at the end of the session, where I've sort of spared some time for those sorts of questions to come in. So I say, hi, Mark Anderson here, ICT Evangelist. Very proud to be presenting as part of the Global EdTech Academy in association with Microsoft and Q. You can find me on social media, on Twitter as ICT Evangelist. Please do follow me and sort of tweet and share things back. If you find this session useful, it'd be lovely to hear back from you with some feedback about how you thought it went and those sorts of things. So I hope to hear more from you after the session. We're approaching the end of the Global EdTech Academy, and all of the scheduled sessions can be found at q.org/Microsoft. And we're actually approaching the end of this round, this season 1, as it were, of the Global EdTech Academy. More than 400 sessions, 400 hours of professional learning will have been shared at the end of August across the last few months, with sort of 40 plus different people such as myself sharing different ways in which you can make the best use of technology in the classroom. It's been a real privilege to have been not only asked to be involved, but to share to so many educators around the world as part of these sessions. So thank you, humble thanks from myself to Mike Tholfson at Microsoft for getting it all set up, and John Coripo from Q for sort of leading the way through there. And Kathy Kuznowski for sort of herding all of us sort of trainers and speakers and whatnot through the myriad of activities we've had to do to get all these things set up. So thank you to those people. If you wanted to watch this session back again, or any of the other sessions that have been run as part of the Global EdTech Academy, I did promise at the start of the session that I would share with you where you can find the playlist with all of the previous sessions. Very, very easy to find. Just simply go to q.org/getterrecording. You can see the URL just there on the screen. I'm just looking for my stylus, my Windows pen, so I can just annotate the screen. There we go. So here we have the URL, q.org/getterrecording, and go there and you'll find all of the videos that have been recorded as part of the project there at that address on YouTube. And there are, tens, hundreds of sessions there now available for you to watch and share, not just for yourself, but with your colleagues as well. And a mass of different professional learning opportunities available there. So please, please, please do go and check out that playlist. There's so much there on offer available to you to help you. So again, if you want to connect with me, you can find me on Twitter as ICT Evangelist. My website, ictevangelist.com, is full of hints and tips and thought leadership pieces around teaching and learning and leadership in schools, with a particular sort of focus on the use of technology in the classroom. Hashtags we're using as part of the Global EdTech Academy are here. So Getter, WeAreQ, Microsoft Edu, my own hashtag, Ask ICT Evangelist is there as well. So please do use those as well. If you search for the WeAreQ or the Getter hashtags on Twitter, you will find as well lots of references to the different sessions that have been running over the past few months as part of the Global EdTech Academy. So that's where you can find me, and I don't do drive-by sessions as well. So if you like what you hear here, and you get to next week and you think to yourself, oh, I wish there was a way to do this more quickly or do that more efficiently, or please drop me a line either via my contact details there at ictevangelist.com/contact, or tweet me. I'll be very happy to respond, share ideas further, and I'll also give you a retweet as well, so that'll pull in a few other people to sort of share their thoughts as well. I've got quite a large professional learning network, and so that should give you some more sort of hints and tips and thoughts and ideas beyond what I can share, because education is a force for good, and we as educators do so much better when we work together and collaborate and share our ideas. So that's a little bit about me. Today's session, as I say, is looking at how you can use Microsoft Edu tools to reduce workload and speed up your working day. We're going to start by looking through and exploring productivity tools and the opportunities that are available to you. And then, as I said, we're going to think about ways to use them, obviously. And at the end, I've got a bit of time sort of blocked in for a bit of Q&A. So I hope that you find this session useful. and looking forward to sharing these things with you. The thing is, when it comes to productivity, often the problem with being productive with technology isn't often the actual technology itself. I don't want to sort of deride colleagues too much, but you do need to be engaged in your own professional learning, particularly when it comes to using technology in the classroom. Yes, technology can do amazing things to help us, but we need to be invested in it ourselves. We need to actually try ourselves in a Yoda spirit, do or do not, you know. So how you're probably here joining this session today as somebody who supports others in their use of technology. When we work with our learners in the classroom, we often come across, or I certainly did when I was teaching, I taught for more than 20 years, and there's often with young people this idea of learned helplessness. They just, won't take the initiative or the effort themselves, students sometimes, to actually go about solving some of the problems that they have. That idea from Carol Dweck about having a growth mindset to these sorts of things is hugely important, because things will go wrong. I started this session with you all this morning, and I again managed to click the wrong sharing option. People make mistakes. To err is to be human, as they say. But how do we sort of solve those problems? How can we make them work for us when things do go wrong? Well, not giving up is a start. I've got a nice little infographic I made a few years ago about growth mindset for teachers. Rather than saying, I can't do this, think more, I can't do this yet. And as people who are, and I'm talking about you in this session now, are probably say people who support others in their use of technology. I don't often get many people who aren't really into technology as people who engage in my sessions, unless I'm working with a school directly, which I do, but and lots and lots of it. But many teachers, I don't come across many teachers who sort of seek me out, who are people who don't really have a growth mindset about, or aren't invested in their own professional development or professional learning. And we need to take ownership of that. And so when we're in that sort of role where we are people who want to try and support teachers and develop their mastery and use of technology in the classroom. And this is something that I devised quite a few years ago now, and this is what you can see on screen now is a sketch note that Sylvia Duckworth converted my original sort of infographic into to try and explain the sort of stages of teacher confidence in using technology. Don't worry, I am going to be talking more about the ins and outs and little things and tips and tweaks and hacks and things that we can use in the classroom ourselves. But many of us, as I say, are in the business of supporting others in their use of technology. And bearing that in mind, if we've got a colleague who is sort of at this survival stage here at the bottom where they're scared of breaking it, they don't want to sort of try hard with their use of technology because they're worried about using it. They're worried it's going to go wrong, and they're lacking in confidence because they don't want to look silly or for things to go wrong in front of their students, or they've always done things this way. That's a phrase that I often hear Abdul Chohan talking about. The most expensive words in education are we've always done it this way. But what can we do as people who support our colleagues with their use of technology? What can we do to help move them from this place of being in sort of survival mode? And we know that as a species, we do well when we feel safe in our environment. So what can we do to provide these sort of safe and successful experiences using technology to help scaffold our colleagues to a point where they can be confident in their use? Well, some of the things that I'm going to be sharing with you during this session may well be things you take away in order to support your colleagues with their use of technology. But what you don't want is them in this sort of survival phase where they're scared of breaking things, not sure what to do and how to use it and these sort of things. So you can provide opportunities for colleagues to gain mastery. And this isn't just you can't just have one training session and expect your colleagues to all become like super duper at whatever it is you're trying to get them to be good at or using. These are things, culture is something which takes a long time to develop, and it's a multi-pronged approach. Peter Drucker talked about, the famous economist, talked about culture eating strategy for breakfast. I talk and share a lot with organisations about strategy, and strategy is hugely important. But if the culture in your organisation isn't right around professional learning and use of technology, and with a multi-pronged approach, it's unlikely to be successful. So how can you help your colleagues to gain mastery? Well, you can give them training, obviously. You can give them ongoing support, but getting them to try things out in lessons sort of breeds confidence, and confidence breeds confidence. The more successful you are, the more comfortable you feel, and the more likely you are to use the stuff. So again, bear in mind, maybe I'll share this infographic with your colleagues, and I can share it into the chat after as well if you'd like, if you're interested in getting a copy of this little infographic. But when I was leading on teaching and learning with technology in schools, I wouldn't provide a one-size-fits-all training strategy for my colleagues. It was very much one which was tailored and personalised to where they were in their sort of confidence and competence sort of on their professional learning journey using technology. So some sessions will be targeted to those who were in survival, some who are in a mastery sort of phase here. I provide opportunities for those who are already seeing impact to sort of stretch them beyond what it is that they're already doing, or getting them to share themselves to others. So getting people who are at this impact phase or a bit further on here at the innovation phase, part of their professional learning could actually be sharing these things back to colleagues who are sort of back at survival and mastery stages. But getting impact with these sorts of things and helping your colleagues to really be efficient and purposeful in their use of technology. You can have a few people such as yourselves who are probably already relatively competent and probably very competent, but getting everyone in your organisation to a stage where you can all be that good and all working in that way takes a lot of time, planning and practice and all of those things. So I've always found this to be a really good document, a really nice way to get me thinking how I can best support schools and colleges and FE and HE organisations. But on top of that, in the jobs where I've had that responsibility myself, it's been my sort of guiding principles, I guess, as to how I go about supporting colleagues to gain that mastery and impact and become really innovative in their uses of technology. So people often hear me talk about teaching and learning focused approaches to using technology in the classroom. And don't get me wrong, it is absolutely paramount that we keep the main thing, as they say. But it isn't just teaching and learning activities that teachers need to be masterful and on top of. The job of teaching isn't just about standing in front of learners. There's lots of activities we have to do, such as grading papers, such as making resources, creating resources, sharing resources, doing planning, creating policy documents, going to meetings, taking minutes, creating agenda, all these different types of activities. And those are far more activities that happen within an organisation rather than just purely inside the classroom. And because of that, yes, having pedagogy first approaches, Michael Fullan talks about pedagogy being the driver and technology being the accelerator. Absolutely, I am so on board with that thinking. Absolutely. But actually, technology can provide so many more benefits to us than just things that we do directly with our learners in the classroom. And when it comes to, and this is a quote from Ron Berger in his awesome book, An Ethic of Excellence. And this is actually about how sort of linked to feedback, but I love the quote, and it relates directly really to that little infographic I shared with you before about the ways in which we can help move our colleagues from one step to the next. Just like we would give really good formative feedback and support to our learners in the classroom, so our colleagues need that too. That's telling someone they've been able to copy and paste for the first time that they're awesome. That's nice, but what you want to try and do is give them opportunities for accomplishment. So a great way of sort of supporting your colleagues in getting these accomplishments and improving their productivity and all of this, as well as the pedagogy type stuff I was mentioning a second ago. But a great way is to get them actually accomplishing something. And a great way to do that would be for you to engage with your colleagues in the MEC, the Microsoft Educator community. On there are loads and loads, thousands and thousands of different courses. Get your colleagues signed up as part of their Office 365 subscription. Get them signed up onto the Microsoft Educator community, get themselves to get a profile up there, and pretty quickly, through choosing professional learning courses which are relevant to them, and there are so many to choose from, they can achieve their Microsoft Innovative Educator badge. And just by having that MIE badge themselves, that actually, if you're thinking about ways in which you can scaffold your colleagues to get them more confident and competent in using technology, that's a fantastic way to try and approach that. And so that will help scaffold their confidence, and that will help develop their self-esteem. And they'll get that from their accomplishments, not just by you running some sessions and then saying, "Good job, Daisy," or whoever it is you're working with. So that's what I'm sort of trying to get through to there. But and I can share a URL to this document as well if you'd like. But as I said, in this guide I created, I wrote this earlier this year with a friend and colleague, Al Kingsley, this guide to creating a digital strategy. If you want to get impact with these sorts of approaches and things, not just for yourself, but at scale, being mindful of the activities that you do, thinking about what tasks you regularly do, and then how they can be done most efficiently, and then applying those things consistently, using the tools available as part of Microsoft 365, you can improve both efficiency, productivity, and then obviously you can reduce your workload. And so if you're after a copy of that guide, it's completely free. I can share a link to that in the chat at the end of the session when we're doing our Q&A. But yeah, keeping things simple are often the best ways to do these things, and I got a nice little way to think about all this in just a second, in my sort of top 5 things to consider when it comes to the ways in which you can sort of improve your productivity. Being mindful that Office 365, Microsoft 365 is a productivity suite. That's what it is. And excuse me for a second while I just get a quick sip of drink. So the first thing I want you to try and think about are the ways in which, or the places, and I'm going to be giving you things you can take away and go and explore, okay? But if we want to be productive for ourselves, actually having a good hard think about what it is that you do, and in business it's called a time series analysis, looking at the different activities that you do and the time it takes, and then analysing those things and looking for shortcuts and ways in which you can improve them. And if you think about your sort of working day or your working week or your working term, what activities take up a lot of your time, and then sort of thinking carefully about the ways in which the tools you have access to could actually speed up those things. So, for example, I'm sort of reading ahead a little bit here in sharing this one, but an activity that we have to do as teachers regularly is to write reports. Could we type those reports? Yes, we can, absolutely. I'm quite a good typist. I can get up to about 60 to 70 words per minute. But I can always say things far more quickly than I can type them. And so why not think about using the Windows dictation tool when you're creating reports? That'll save you time. It will produce what you need more quickly. It is likely, that you will need to do some proofreading and editing afterwards. But as you use the dictation tool more, so you'll get more used to using it to help you do what you need to do, and you will then, although you wouldn't want to put a comma in front of an and, but you get the idea, you'll get used to using the tool, and the tool will get used to you using the tool too, and both sides of that will improve over time. So think carefully about how you can save time by doing an analysis of your different activities and breaking those down. And then if you find something that works with you, share it with your colleagues. Create a little easy infographic in PowerPoint and share that idea with colleagues, or record yourself doing it using PowerPoint Recorder or Microsoft Stream, or whatever it is you want to use. Share those things beyond your classroom four walls, and help your colleagues with that as well. So think carefully about the ways in which you can save time. Then think, and apologies, I'm not quite sure what I've gone into 2 lines there, but the ways in which we communicate as well can be massively improved, and we make us far more efficient if we use the tools in effective ways. The bane of my life, one of the banes of my life when I was teaching full-time, was the staff all email that would come in, and then the subsequent 15, 30, 45 replies that I would all get notified about, when the email in the first place wasn't even really that relevant to me. Making use of the tools that are available to us, and I've got some great little tips for you around that sort of stuff in a few moments. But again, being mindful about how we communicate and what tools we use for communication, and then how we use those things can make us far more effective. If you have a leadership position, maybe if you have and you can turn these things off, it's all down to your IT admins, but one of the things that I did was to remove the ability to send a staff all email. Staff all emails are often sent by people who are just lazy and can't be bothered to just select the few people that they actually know need to receive that email. There are occasions when a whole missive needs to go out to absolutely everybody. Maybe see if you could get it limited to just people in leadership positions who on occasion will need to email all staff, limiting that functionality to people who don't really need that functionality. But again, thinking carefully about how you communicate, the tools you use, and what you do with it, again, will really help you to boost up your productivity. How you collaborate, I need to really sort out my font sizes here. I do apologise, ladies and gentlemen, but how you collaborate and using collaboration tools as well are super helpful in making you be more efficient in what it is that you do. I remember when we were working on our school improvement plan, for example, we'd have version 2, version 2 final, version 2 final, then version 3, version 3.1, version 3.12 final. Getting your documentation up into the cloud where you can always work on a live document is such a brilliant way to save time and improve your workflows. And I got more ideas around collaboration than just that in this session too. But making good use of collaboration. Where and how can you collaborate? Do you have to use that particular tool? Do we have to get together for a physical meeting? Do we have to do these things this way? Are there ways in which we can actually reflect upon what it is that we do and make it better for us all through the ways in which we work together? And this is terrible, ladies and gentlemen. I'm just going to jump back. I'm just going to jump into my presentation because this is not very good for you. I'm very sorry that all of these font sizes are so ridiculously big. That's a little tip as well. Look, see, I'm pressing the Shift key. I could go to each of these. I'm going to reduce the font size in a second, right? Now, I could do that one by one. What I've actually done is I've pressed the Shift key and I've clicked on each one, and so then they're all selected. And when I now go to here to reduce the font size, and it isn't as pretty anymore, so I can. But I'm grouping these things all together, so it's all happening at the same time for all of them. Little hints and tips and tweaks and things that you can do to speed up what it is that you do. So yeah, being more smart with what it is that we're trying to achieve will help us to achieve our targets. And the overall aim with these things, I'll just jump through these again. That's so much better now, isn't it? Is for us to have a little bit less work to do. So under these different headings, what are my sort of ideas and things you can take away for you to do? So, hey, what sort of things might you want to consider? Well, scheduling emails, often we have to send out a bunch of emails as part of what we do every single day, and some of that needs to be responsive, some of that needs to be in the moment, and we reply when we actually need to, and all of these different things. But you don't have to send them all at the same time, and often teachers and lecturers will have to do this sort of activity of an evening outside of sort of normal teaching hours. If you're working at 7, 8, and if you're a parent, often you can't get into it until your children have gone to bed, so there you are, 10, 11 at night, sat in front of a computer trying to do your schoolwork and planning and preparation and things. Do you want to be that person who is seen to be sending emails at 11 o'clock at night? Well, nobody's going to read that email at 11 o'clock at night, unless they're like you and they're up, and then you're reducing their productivity when they should be getting themselves off to bed anyway. Why don't you schedule those emails in Outlook so that they are sent at sort of a reasonable time, like 8 a.m. the next morning? Nobody needs to know that you were working on them at 10 o'clock last night, 11 o'clock or later. Okay, and it sends it all out in one go. It also means, and I take this approach with my social media as well. Obviously, I tweet a lot and share a lot of things. Rather than writing each tweet whenever I feel like writing a tweet, I'll use a scheduling tool like TweetDeck or Buffer or whatever, and I'll sit down and I'll have like a focused, targeted 30 minutes on creating those messages. And we can do the same thing with our emails, have a really targeted, focused moment, getting through all those emails that we need to send, schedule them for the next morning, and it's all done. It could be that you need to send out reminders over a period of time. Well, sit down and write all those reminder emails in one go, and then just schedule them to go out when those reminders need to go out. Let's say you're a teacher who needs to remind year 7 to do something on one day, year 8 to do something on the next day, year 9 the next day, year 10 the next day, so forth and so on. Write all those emails at the same time. Just schedule them to go out at the time which is most appropriate and helpful, and that will, again, in itself, will free your mind up. You won't need to remember, oh crap, it's Tuesday, I need to email year 8 about X. Frees your mind up, makes you more productive, saves you time. And that's not the technology, that's your approach to how you use that technology. But it's an important distinction between those things. So use the tools that are available to you to help you to be more productive. Learning keyboard shortcuts as well is super important in improving your productivity. Many people will know things like Control and C, Control and X, Control and V. How many of you don't know the Control and D shortcut, for example, which is duplicate? That in and of itself, okay, I'll show you in action now. If I wanted to copy and paste this to put an equal one over here, I could click onto here and press Control and C and Control and V, or I could just press Control and D. And Control and D does the job in one. And so I'm really quickly being able, again, it's a micro improvement. Okay, but in a sort of marginal gains kind of a world, those aggregated little improvements, add them all up, and it can make a big difference over time. So I'm a huge fan of keyboard shortcuts. There are lots that I use all the time, and have a good look into the tools that you use regularly to try and help you. So, for example, something I do in Excel often is have to put in absolute cell referencing. And well, we can do that by pressing the function key 4 when we're actually in Excel, and that will put the dollar signs in for us. And if we tap that repeatedly, okay, it will cycle between horizontal and vertical absolute cell referencing. That might be too geeky for some of you. Some of you might not be huge Excel users, but for somebody who does use Excel a lot, like me, that's a huge time saver over time, having to remember to put all those different things in place. So learning keyboard shortcuts is hugely important. And if you are in an organization, in a school where there are things or tools, or let's say you're all heavy Word users or heavy Teams users, sharing some of the most commonly helpful keyboard shortcuts. When you add together all those microseconds that you've saved, plus that of all your colleagues, cumulatively aggregating those things together, that's a big time saving. So think carefully about keyboard shortcuts because they are a great productivity tool. Outlook now comes with a focused inbox as well. There used to be previously a feature in Outlook called clutter, okay, but use your focused inbox to help you be more productive and to keep you focused on the messages that are really important to you. If you want to send an email as well, if you go into your attachments bit, you can pull things straight through within Outlook to bring them straight into your email from OneDrive or SharePoint, depending on how your organization has things set up. But on top of that, if you were to go to, let's say I went to my OneDrive and I find a file that I want to share with, let's say Dorian, who's with us today. All I simply have to do is go to OneDrive, get the share link, send the email to Dorian, and automatically, just because I have put that link into that email, Microsoft 365 recognizes that and will automatically make that file shareable. How many times have we in the past used tools like this, and you click the link and it's like, oh, it's not been shared, so I can't view the document, sorry, and a whole more bit of time's wasted with emails backwards and forwards. Or can you give him permission to access a file? Yeah, okay, backwards and forwards. It's yeah. Now you can just do that, and that should just work automatically. If it isn't working like that in your organization, speak to your IT tech teams, because that's how things should be. Make use of templates as well. If there are activities that you regularly do, rather than, and this is not just for you, but for your students too, rather than asking all of your students to create let's say you're a science teacher and you're wanting to get students to record the results in an experiment, actually, I would probably create a Microsoft form and then share that with them and get them to fill that in, rather than sort of recording it all individually. But let's say you want them to record it individually, just share a template of that table. It would take each of you, let's say you've got 30 students in your class, it would take each student a minute, let's say, to create that table to record the results. If you've done it for them, it's taken you a minute to do it. If you share it with them, you've saved 30 minutes of time from all your students in your class. Templates are huge, and if there are resource sheets and all these sort of things that you use regularly, don't think about making one and then getting it over to the photocopier. Use the tools available within OneNote or Teams or sharing things through OneDrive, or however you want to get it set up and do it is entirely up to you. But using a template to remove the secretarial, the actual activity of making these things away from students, to focus them on the busy activities that you have all of the time. Sorry, 1 second. Templates within your teams are huge. We've been given as part of the global EdTech Academy. You can see the consistent slides that I'm using here. I made the slide content, but I didn't make the nice backgrounds and the branding and all that sort of stuff. That was actually done by Slides Mania for us all, linked to Q and Microsoft Edu. So we have some consistently laid out slides which we can sort of tailor to our own uses, but that's saved me time having to actually make every slide work really, really well. And that's been done by somebody else, but it saved me a whole ton of time. All these things can help us to be far more productive. PowerPoint Designer as well is a great time-saving tool. Speaking of PowerPoint, if I just jump out of here again for a second, the Designer tool is really easy to use and very simple to find. Just on the right-hand side here, go on to Design Ideas, and what it will do is it will do a little bit of thinking in the background. And if it can, this one's already quite too busy and has got a good layout and things already, so it's not giving me any design ideas, but please do check out the design ideas here, because normally, it gives you fantastic time-saving ways to improve what it is you're trying to do with your slides in PowerPoint. There's a sort of very simple AI built into that to help make you more productive and to produce some fantastic slides for you without you having to put in the time and the effort as well. I mentioned communication before, and there are loads of ways we can be more efficient with our communication. We can use Microsoft Teams. Teams is a fantastic tool for collaboration and communication. But rather than sending that staff or email, it's super easy. Just press the @ symbol in Teams, and then once you do that, you start typing their name. So let's say I wanted to get in touch with Amelia. Let's say I'll put @Amelia, and then all the different Amelias would come up, and I could click on the Amelia that I want the message to be going to. Everyone can see it, but Amelia will get a notification so that she knows there's a message there specifically waiting for her, for example. I've mentioned the staff all thing, so I'm not going to labour that point. And if you can get that removed from your organisation, you'll find that a real benefit. If it is available, though, if it is something which is happening and there's a group called Staff All, or you're in a big email chain, and there is an option in Outlook for you to actually ignore emails that are in a chain that you're not really needing to read and things. They'll still be there for you to view, but you can simply click on the ignore button, and you won't receive any more notifications about that particular message, unless, of course, you want to turn it back on again, which you can unignore as well, should you want to. Using dictation is absolutely huge as well. It's really, really useful, and it doesn't even have to be dictation. If you're a one note class notebook or staff notebook user, just using the audio tool to record your voice in and of itself is a huge productivity and time saving thing to do. But using dictation can change your life. When I started using dictation, I taught a lot of GCSE subjects. That's subjects for students who are aged sort of 16, getting ready for their exams in year 11 here in the UK. And I'd have to write reports for 5 different classes, which were all due in at the same time, and about 30 students per class. It was 150 reports to write, where I've got to write a paragraph or two in 3 different areas for each of those students. That's a huge job, and that has to be done outside of the teaching timetable as well. So using dictation, anything you can do to speed up that process can be massively useful. If you really want to get into it, something that we did do in my department was to actually create some bank statements inside Excel, which we could then run through through a mail merge into reports that was generated into Word. There are ways in which you can be super productive if you want to. If you're interested in finding out how I did that, I'm very happy to sort of create a little blog post to show you how you do that, so you can refer to that in the future if you wanted me to. But it's something that helps us massively in terms of our productivity when it came to having to write so many humongous reports. And I've already mentioned a few months ago the attach via link rather than actually using an attachment with inside Outlook. So grab the link from SharePoint or OneDrive, pop it into your email, and that should automatically share that through in your email. Collaboration is obviously super important, and I talked about that a little bit earlier. But share live documents, and that's not just about documents or policies or procedures. I used to share the agenda for all my meetings I was sort of leading on when I was in a middle and senior leadership role. I'd share the live agenda and ask colleagues to feed into the actual agenda documents. Sometimes it would mean that we wouldn't have to cover some of the sections in the meeting because people have fed back and the information was shared there already. There were times when we actually did so much work on the collaborative live agenda. They then became the actual minutes, and we didn't need to meet to actually discuss those things at all. We often would still meet and have a cup of coffee and say, we're all okay with everything that we covered on the meeting? Yeah, okay. And then we'd go. You don't need to do things in old ways when you can use tools to make it easier for you to do them. And so sharing the live documents can be massively helpful with that, making sure you're using things like Word Online or PowerPoint Online, whatever tool you want to use to support that, but using the online versions makes it far more easy to make them accessible. And creating shared folders as well. Just make it, rather than putting documents into different places. If you'll have colleagues that you work with regularly as part of your team, rather than sharing each document one by one, just create a folder and share it with those key people that you regularly share with. And whenever you put a document into that folder, then it should then automatically pick up those sharing rights to your colleagues, so that you don't have to share each document each time. Just put the file into that folder, and it will automatically be shared by default based upon the settings that you set up for that folder. Have autosave turned on as well. I mean, when you're working in the cloud, things autosave automatically anyway, but on the top, just where your ribbon, you should see in things like PowerPoint and Word, the option to have autosave turned on. Something I would drill into my students' heads almost every lesson, it felt sometimes, was this idea of saving early and saving often. So many of us have lost work over the years. I lost work, from not saving it properly back when I was using those sort of small 3.5-inch floppy disks. Do you remember floppy disks? I remember with floppy disks when they were floppy, let alone the ones that came out a bit later, which had a harder shell. But saving things is super important, and autosave can well, it can't save lives, but it can certainly save you a lot of heartache and worry. Again, using the cloud, who needs a USB stick when you can save things and work directly from the cloud? And there are many ways you can use these tools to help you achieve your targets. Microsoft Planner, if you haven't used Microsoft Planner yet, that's a fantastic tool for helping you map out projects, filling up your time and when you're going to be doing different things, creating to-do lists, all these different things. It's a great tool as part of the Microsoft 365 offer. And a calendar that you have inside Outlook, how many of you actually do use your calendar? Many teachers I know live and die by their big A4 teacher planner, and that's great, but only you know what's inside your teacher planner. I do love a teacher planner, I absolutely do. But who else knows that I'm meeting with Jane at 10:40 on Wednesday? Nobody. Use your calendar and make it really clear when you're available, where you're going to be, all these different things. This isn't about the technology so much as making things transparent to colleagues. It could be like by putting in my calendar that I've got a meeting with Jane in room E1 at 10:40 on Wednesday. It means that Dave, who wants to see something else, knows where I am, when I am, who I'm seeing. Is it possible for him to jump in and see me for 2? All that stuff. Transparency is so helpful. And again, it's not a technology thing, but using your calendar, applying these sort of time-saving and efficiency sort of approaches can have a big impact across the whole of your organisation. And sort of sharing, if you're in a leadership role with these sorts of things, if you can actually share how you do these things and having consistent approaches across your whole organisation, you can make massive inroads into productivity and efficiency and time saving by working far more smart. It's really important, and if you want it to work, say share things outwardly and go to that culture thing I mentioned before. So there are many ways that Microsoft 365 can help you to work less, so you can use Teams effectively. Now, if this was January, it would be quite not necessarily innovative, but an unusual thing to be saying to people, don't all go to meeting room 1 for your meeting. Save yourself that 10-minute walk or 20-minute walk, or moving from one campus to the other if you're a bigger organisation. Let's use Teams and meet virtually. Well, we're very much used to it now, aren't we? And COVID, but using Teams effectively and meeting virtually, is a great way again to reduce the time you have to spend. And if you are meeting in Teams, record the meeting like I am now. There are some fantastic productivity tips and opportunities for making things more accessible. When you record something in Teams, it saves it automatically into Microsoft Stream. Microsoft Stream now automatically will create a transcript of the conversations that take place during the whole of that meeting. It will also even, because your names will be tied into Teams, it will even put your name next to the different things that you have said when you've said them. It is absolutely phenomenal. That can also form an attachment or a link to any meeting minutes you might have. There's always a really clear record there. I can even now within Teams, this is a new feature, I can even turn on if I want to. I haven't for viewing space and what have you, because I'm sharing my screen a lot, but you can even turn on live captioning now. So not only can I present like I am now, I can turn on live captioning and the captioning will appear below. Microsoft Translator works lovely as an opportunity there for you to view a presentation and see it in your target and hear it in your target language, for example. Lots of things to help you be more effective in the ways in which you interact and engage with your various stakeholders, be them colleagues, parents, or your students. I've mentioned before using dictation. It is a huge time saver, dictation. And going back to this idea of your calendar, share your calendar in Outlook, okay? Put whatever it is you want to be on there, and then with relevant people who need to know where you are when you are, share that calendar in Outlook so that others are able to know where you are and can know when you're free for meetings and so forth and so on. Make use of Microsoft Stream. I've said that a little bit there with the meeting virtually, but use it not just for things like meetings, but if you want to demonstrate something, record yourself in PowerPoint using Stream, a bit like I am now within Teams, although this is PowerPoint. You've got the recording options within inside PowerPoint as well. If I just press Escape here for a second, I've got the recording option here. You might not have this available to you automatically. You can change that and go in by going into, there's the auto save option just up here. Let's see, I should have that turned on. There we go. And great, thank you. And then go to File, and then in Options down the bottom here, simply go to your Customize Ribbon option, and the recording option is here. So you can record and all the options you want to hear. You can even, if you want to, create resources for your learners, which have got quizzes in between the slides by putting in a Microsoft form within the presentation as well. So we're getting towards the end of the presentation. I'm mindful of time, so we've seen those. So other things, other ways in which we can use Microsoft 365 to help us. Here are a few extra little tips. I couldn't just go over those sort of 5 things there. Here are a few extra ones that I find really, really useful. Often as teachers, we want to do things with PDF documents. If you drag a PDF directly into Word, it will make that PDF then an editable file. That has been such a time saver for me, particularly when I've been wanting to sort of create mock tests for my learners. I just drag the past paper into Word, it converts it into an editable document, and I can do with it as I will. If you're using, if you have Excel on your mobile device, you can actually, or if you've got a Surface or a Windows device with a back-facing camera, you can photograph data. Let's say you've got a table of data that's been given to you. You can photograph that in Excel, and that will convert it automatically into a spreadsheet, which saves you again so much time with data entry and all those sorts of things. Office Lens is superb for capturing documents. It's built directly into things like Excel and OneNote and all of those things as well. So using Office Lens to help capture documents and picking up the text in there as well. Immersive readers built into that as well. And talking of Immersive Reader, think about using tools equipped with Immersive Reader to improve accessibility of the different documents that you are working with and sharing with your colleagues and your learners. And finally, just to sort of reinforce that point from earlier, learn those keyboard shortcuts to help make you really, really, really productive with what it is that you do. And then try and have those smart meetings that we mentioned earlier. So as I said, mindful, consistently applied approaches using the tools you have available to you can really improve efficiency, productivity, and help to reduce your workload. And then when it comes to those people who say, well, I can't do technology, just remember, thinking about that infographic I showed before, moving from survival through to innovation, self-esteem from accomplishments, not compliments. Get your colleagues onto the Microsoft Educator community, give them access to the playlist that I shared with you earlier, that q.org/get-a-playlist, and get them sort of engaging with all of those professional learning opportunities that are there. That's me kind of wrapped up with the sort of front-facing part of this session. Thank you very much for joining me. Please do tweet me at ICT Evangelist and all the different things. If you're not a Twitter person, my site that I shared with you before as well, the address is just here down the bottom, ictevangelist.com/contact. But I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. I'm going to come back in and I'm going to see if there are any questions from any of you. There we go, coming back in. Thank you very much for coming to the session. Does anybody have any questions for me at all this morning? Just realised my face is quite low here. I should be up more like this. Okay, so not appearing to have any questions as yet. Well, I hope you found the session useful. This is where I start talking now, and about 15 questions all come through at the same time. Thank you so much for attending the session today. If you wanted, I did say I'd share that infographic with you, so I'm just going to jump back into PowerPoint for a second, and I'll just grab that infographic, the one that Sylvia Duckworth created. I'll share that with you into the live chat. As I've found it so useful over the years, and I'm sure you will too. And to put that into the live chat there. Hope you find that useful, everybody. Whilst I'm here as well, I'll just put in the link to the YouTube channel, q.org/get-a-playlist. And if you want to attend any more of these sessions, then simply go to, not that address because I can't spell Microsoft now all of a sudden, Microsoft, there we go. That's fantastic, everybody. Thank you so much for the session. I really hope you found the ideas helpful and useful. Please be mindful that the Global EdTech Academy is running right through until the end of August. There are more sessions today. Later on today, Vernon Wright is talking and sharing. We've got other people sort of shared out throughout the day, and same with every day. There's sessions running all the time. I'm running a session next week. Please do check out my Twitter for that. That's an office hours session. That's a drop-in session. So if you've got specific questions for a particular thing, then please do drop in on that office hour. It's not a presentation like the one today. That's one you can just sort of drop in and come in and ask me questions on topics that are relevant to you in your organisation. So thank you very much for coming to the session. I'm going to wrap things up now and say thank you for attending. I'll hit the stop recording button and I'll end the meeting. Thank you very much for coming, everybody. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know the message saying wasn't working.